Well, hi everyone. I'm John Rethlin, and this is my review of Dark Side of the Ring: The Life and Crimes of New Jack. That two-part Benoit episode was certainly fucked up, wasn't it? Thank you guys, by the way, for the great amount of views that you gave both those reviews. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it, and I'd love to know what you guys thought of this show in the comments because New Jack is certainly a violent, insane, crazy, and also violently insane person that had a rough upbringing. And we get to learn about that. We get to learn about a bunch of other stuff, and we get to learn about what he was thinking during some of these episodes that he had, these certain incidents and stuff like that. And he really didn't take any shit from anybody, and he carved his path in wrestling and carved, a lot of people's heads up. Fucking hell, this was pretty damn disturbing. Not that there wasn't a ton that was necessarily like shocking. If you knew anything about New Jack, you kind of knew that, he was a pretty crazy individual. But yeah, I'm not going to go over everything minute detail, but let's hit some of the, the high points here and the low points. Chris Jericho narrates it. We get clips from Jim Cornette, D'Lo Brown, and the Sandman, who were, with New Jack during various parts of his career. And he got the name for New Jack City. Makes sense. If you've ever seen that movie, it would actually totally make sense. Ray Candy trained him. Ray Candy, journeyman wrestler, made his name in a few territories. And he said to New Jack, you got to create something that they've never seen, that you've never seen, that other people have never seen. Basically make an impact and, be somebody that'll be remembered. Now you got to start in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, a regional territory that Jim Cornette and Rick Rubin funded, and Jim Cornette booked it and that kind of stuff and brought people in. It was very much a rednecky territory. So rednecks probably weren't, some weren't too fond of black people, I would imagine. I mean, I'm just guessing based on, some of the stories you hear about, for New Jack and from, some of the areas that they ran shows. So New Jack leaned into the whole thing and just went with the stereotypes for black people and stuff like that and really cut a lot of goddamn good promos. That's one thing New Jack was. He was a hell of a promo. And he did some good interview pieces here. Also, want to say, there were a lot of N-words and a lot of shit that was thrown out, a lot of swearing. No to any of that shit in the comments. I'm not going to say any of that stuff, and don't you dare say any of that stuff in the comments. I will not have that. You can swear if you want. That's fine. No racial slurs at all. Or I don't care who the fuck you are, you're getting banned. That's where I draw the line, which is kind of, yeah, I don't have much of a line, but that's something I will just not allow. Anyway, so Jim Cornette did give him a start, said, hey, go out there, be this, piss people off, basically piss people off. New Jack, they show clips of New Jack cutting a promo. OJ, keep up the good work. 2 less that we gotta worry about. Holy shit. And then the gangsters were formed. Mustafa Saeed. He was like the muscle. He looked like a pretty scary guy, but New Jack was the promo. He was a hell of a promo. Sandman did his words while in a bar. Shocking, I know. Apparently Mustafa was snorting or smoking pencil shavings. Smoking pencil shavings. Or snorting them, whatever. I don't know what the fuck he was going to do. He was doing some kind of drugs, but I don't know why you would use pencil shavings in anything, but he did. Mustafa got arrested, and I guess he was so goddamn high, he was like, hey, look, everybody wants to fuck me. The cops want to fuck me all day. Good Lord. And then New Jack at one point went and got a doll in a store and then put a noose around it. A white doll. Because why the fuck not? Then they had a feud with Rock and Roll Express, who were working in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and they recreated the Rodney King beating, except the roles were reversed. The white people were getting beat down. Holy shit. People wanted to riot. They wanted to goddamn riot. Then they jumped to ECW, and you get where New Jack, his violence and all that stuff, that the violence really escalated because that's what ECW did. He talked about his childhood. His childhood was fucked up. He had an alcoholic father, I guess, who died when he was 5. Stabbed his mother 5 times in front of the family. I mean, good Lord. Months later, the mother tried to take him away and got shot in the leg. I mean, the father, I think he said the father died when he was 5, but still, fucking hell, no wonder. And he didn't have a good relationship with his mother. He talks about that a little bit later. It's like, no wonder New Jack, Jerome, I believe, was so goddamn fucked up. And then we have Tiny the Terrible, a midget wrestler, talking about talking about the mass transit incident, aka Eric Koulas, who was a local guy, big kid, that lied about his age, said he was 20, 21 years old, but was actually 17. Wrestled a few shows against Tiny the Terrible. And he had some pretty funny lines there. I encourage you guys to check that out. He actually had some pretty good stuff. And in security, Stu Kaplan and John Donovan talk about the fateful day. We see footage of the mass transit thing. Mass transit, this is how he picked him up. This is how Eric pissed him off. He said, wanted to put him through a table. A rookie telling New Jack, who maybe had only been in wrestling for a little bit, but still, he was much more of a veteran, obviously, than this kid was. Yeah, New Jack got pissed. He got pissed. And, oh, yeah, Eric wanted to bleed. So New Jack's like, yeah, I'll help you. He decided to, he helped him with an X-Acto knife. A freaking X-Acto knife. I'm not goddamn kidding. Stabbed him, caused him to bleed, beat the shit out of him. And then the kid's dad later called New Jack the N-word, which I can imagine that didn't go over too well. We then get footage of the kid, looking at his injuries. And it fucked him up and he got out of wrestling, obviously. I mean, I think anybody would. Then they went to trial. Heyman had to be on the stand, and he was working the jury and everything because Heyman's just that good with words. But he had to say what Eric's father said, and he had to say the N-word, and he said, "I'm sorry, Jack." I'm sorry, Jack, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him for saying that at all. Tiny did get into WWE for a bit. He said, "Hey, if I'm going to help you out, please help me get into WWE." So I imagine Heyman probably helped him get in there. That was cool. Apparently, Eric died from botched gastric bypass surgery. And then we talk about the dives and the coke snorting and leading to extreme moves and more, bigger dives, and eventually talk about the Vic Grimes incident where Vic Grimes had, during a botch dive, had landed on New Jack's head and caused brain damage where fluid was leaking out his nose. Sandman at one point said, "Imagine Humpty Dumpty with arms and legs as a professional wrestler." That's Vic Grimes. XPWs, where, the famous thing where New Jack got his revenge on Vic. Vic had apologized before, but New Jack said, "You never even called me. You never even checked to see if I was okay." I mean, so yeah, I'd understandably be pissed off too. He tossed him off, he tased him, then tossed him off the scaffold, and nearly out of the ring. So shockingly, he only had a dislocated ankle, despite the fact that he looked like he was a dummy being tossed. And then the de-evolution of hardcore wrestling, and the fact that New Jack had elevated things so goddamn high he had to compete against people that were doing more and more extreme shit. I don't like hardcore wrestling. Hardcore wrestling is not proper wrestling to me, in my opinion. It worked for New Jack and it worked for a time, but then it got just ridiculous. The Gypsy Joe incident, a 72-year-old man that didn't sell anything, and then New Jack started beat the shit out of him. Fans were calling him the N-word, so he hit him with a bat. He hit him with chairs. He just beat the shit out of him. We then get New Jack. He would never make it in WWE. No, he fucking wouldn't. WWE would have, not have had anything to fucking do with him. Then we had MWW, who's a wrestler promoter. He liked New Jack, said he was a great cook, wanted to make sure people were taken care of and that they laughed. He had Thunder Wrestling Federation. There was this guy named Hunter Red. This is the famous one where New Jack had a guy in Florida, and what happened is, this guy had been disrespectful, so this is where he took that blade, from Wolverine claw and stabbed him. He didn't say it was 16 times, it was 9 times. 9 times. He counted how many he stabbed him. That's how messed up New Jack was and how much he wanted to hurt him. So yeah, then he took liberties. So the line, and Cornette said the line between cooperation and felonious assault is blurry. And yeah, talked about what New Jack did and stuff like that. And then New Jack, the cop had arrested him because it was in a Marriott area, and somebody said that a black man had stabbed a white guy multiple times in a Marriott. So he got arrested. Cop had said, "Why do you hate white people?" And I believe MWW, easy for me to say, said, I thought that was a little wrong. Hunter Red talks to New Jack and says, "Hey, let's turn this into an angle. Let's go all over. If you train me, if you work with me, I'll drop the charges." New Jack had him drop the charges and left Florida. Just put stuff in storage, left Florida, never went back. He didn't get along with his mom, apparently, and he could never separate. After a while, he couldn't separate his gimmick and the person the person that he really is. And yeah, that's a little bit much. So that's pretty much the end of the whole thing right there. There's obviously more details that people could get into. You guys can get into those in the comments. My God, New Jack, yeah, he had a hell of a rise, but he had a hell of a fall, and he's not really wrestling anymore because he probably can't because age and all that, and all the de-evolution of hardcore wrestling. But it's a pretty good episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin, and I'll see you soon.